What's really good? What's really good? What's really good? Welcome back to another Wednesday night with the Sanchez Show. As always, I'm your host, Eric Sanchez, aka Legend in Two Games. As you can see, I got a very special guest with me. You've seen him on the show before. You've seen some of the content we put out there. Sports journalist, Sports First Media, Terry Spain covers the UFL Orlando Storm. Terry, welcome back to the show, bro.
Man, thank you for having me. I'm flying high like an eagle.
Or like a hawk. Some people might say a hawk.
I didn't want to be too biased, but yeah.
Listen, you got your Atlanta Hawks. I know you're a Hawks fan, so obviously we got to get into the Knicks Hawks series. Game 3 tomorrow night in Atlanta. We've got a couple game 2s going down tonight, and it's perfect timing because the last time you were on, we were talking about the Orlando Magic and what they could do to kind of turn around this season. And they've probably put together some of their best performances now over the last week and a half with the play-in game and then their game 1 in Detroit. So we got to get into that. NBA playoffs, and we're going to talk a little bit of NFL draft as well as the Orlando Storm, who are 4-0, leading the way in the UFL. But let's start with some NBA playoffs. Let's start with Knicks and Hawks because obviously that's what we want to get to, all right? The Hawks with a great comeback in Game 2 at MSG. The series shifts now. What are your thoughts on the Hawks coming out of that Game 2, and how are you feeling going into Atlanta with the series tied at 1?
Just taking actually being a personal fan out of it, I'm actually excited for the Hawks because the Hawks were losing, I think, by 12 points in the fourth quarter. And for them to be able to pull that out in Madison Square Garden is no tall task. I mean, because it seems like ever since the Trae Young effect happened, that the Hawks, even though a lot of those players was not on the team when Trae Young was playing, it seemed like the Hawks still feel like they can have the Knicks' number. And they clawed back into it. We were down one of our big men. Landale is not playing. He hasn't played the whole series, and he's still out for another week or so. And so for us to be able to come into New York and take one of the games, in particular a game like we took last game, absolutely amazing. And I know that does wonders for the confidence because of the bench play.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be excited about it. And like you said, I can be unbiased in my opinion on it. I'm a firm believer that Game 2 is far more important than Game 1, right? Game 1 is almost like first round of a boxing match. It's going to be a lot of jabbing. It's going to be a lot of let's figure out where we can attack, where we can expose some things. In Game 2, you make the adjustments. So I think for the Hawks to be able to win that Game 2, especially like you said, being down, the biggest adjustment I saw, and I've talked about this with so many people, putting Kuminga on Towns has kind of changed the way the Knicks are trying to attack their defense. Now, I don't think Kuminga can stop Towns if they just dump the ball down to Towns to the post. And that's something that we're going to have to see.
Can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
But what it did do is it took away Towns as a pick and roll option. Because what you don't want to do as a Knick fan, as a Knick in general, is now you don't want Kuminga getting the assignment on Brunson, right? Because then Brunson's not going to get a shot off. He's not going to be able to get into that mid-range game because Kuminga is just so much more athletic and a longer defender. So I think that's been the one main adjustment. Shout out to Quinn Snyder for that because I thought that was major in the fourth quarter. Towns came out of that third quarter. Towns was hot. You look at the fourth quarter, Towns didn't score in fourth. He had no impact in the fourth quarter of that game. So that was one of the major adjustments. The other thing for the Hawks that is going to be interesting to figure out, and you and I were texting about this, CJ has played well. I thought they had a great game from Kuminga in Game 2, as I mentioned. They're going to have to figure out a way to get Alexander Walker going. He's got to get going.
Yeah, but he hit a key 3 though.
Oh, no, he had a key 3. But what I'm saying is they need, right? Jalen Johnson wasn't that good in the first half. He was good in the second half. But they haven't gotten Alexander Walker going. And that, to me, is going to be the intrigue with the Hawks because if they do get him going, can they still maintain their balance? If they get him going, because right now what's happening is since he's not getting going, you see CJ's been far more assertive. CJ's kind of saying, as the veteran of this team, I'll take over. Don't worry about it and figure it out. Once they get Alexander Walker going, then we got to see if they can maintain the other guys. That's what I'm paying attention to going into Game 3. I'm assuming you think the Hawks are going to win Game 3.
Yeah, I honestly think, you have to realize this. When you're able to steal a game like they were able to, and then now you get to come back home and play in front of your home crowd, everybody, I think it might be already sold out. But one of the things you got to take in consideration, and you mentioned about Alexander Walker, he's been on the entire season for the most part, and just this series, the first 2 games, he hasn't been what a lot of people expected him to be. But coming back home, I think this is going to be the wake-up call for him. And they've been able to manage all of these players averaging double figures the whole entire season, for them to have these two drop-offs, I'm not too concerned. I think now he's in his comfort zone. He takes big shots. He's not going to stop shooting. But CJ is a scorer. See, one of the things, I know the Wizards are probably kicking themselves in the butt because they just pretty much gave him away and gave up on him. But CJ is a hooper, man. He's a veteran, and he's played in big games, especially with Big Dame Dollar. So those guys were a 1-2 tandem for a long time. So this is nothing new for him. He welcomes stuff like this. And I think that's going to be the big issue for the Knicks, is because they don't have an answer for him. But when you get Alexander Walker to start getting on, you might lose by 10 to 15 points next game.
I mean, let's take it easy. Let's calm down
a
little bit. Pump the brakes.
Don't shoot the message. I'm just a messenger.
No. Listen, I'll say this. I think so. In terms of the first comment you made with CJ, the Wizards were looking to move on anyway. I think the Wizards, what they did in the trade was the right thing to do. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about the Wizards. We don't want to talk about teams that aren't in the playoffs, right?
You're right.
No disrespect. We don't want to spend too much time on those teams.
But I'm with Wizards, you, right.
Right. But the Wizards are in full rebuild mode, and they saw an opportunity to get Trae Young. On the flip side, for the Hawks, I thought the move made sense in a number of ways. One, you're handing the team over to Jalen Johnson. He's your all-star. He's the future of the team. Two, you get CJ, as you mentioned, who is super experienced, a lot of playoff games in Portland. And now you're bringing that veteran presence with this young team. So I think CJ is fitting perfectly. I think CJ has gotten overlooked for so long in his career. But this is a guy who's averaged over 20 points a game for over a decade. So like you say, he's a hooper. He can score. If there's nothing else CJ can do, he can score the basketball. And he's showing that in his series. I started off by saying I thought this was probably a 6-game series. I still believe it is a 6-game series for the Knicks. I think Atlanta, like I said, I think Atlanta's feisty. I think they are good. I just think that it's also a tough matchup for them because there is so much more experience on the Knicks side. And we got to see how these games play out for Atlanta. If CJ can maintain this and they can get Alexander Walker going, then maybe they prove me wrong. I just think the Knicks experience overall is what's going to really play out. Similar to what you saw with the Knicks in Detroit last year. I thought Detroit might have been the better team in the series, but the Knicks have more experience and they found a way to win the series.
Yeah, but one of the things that a lot of people are not talking about is that the Atlanta Hawks also picked up Buddy Hield. And even though Buddy Hield is not playing, he brings a lot of experience, right? And I don't know if you know this, but today in practice, Buddy Hield was actually helping Zachary Richardson, who's our first-round draft pick that has not come off the bench because we got enough talent.
Well, Quinn tried him a little bit in game one, and Quinn didn't like what he saw. I mean, he came in, he had 2 ugly shots, and Quinn was like, all right, we ain't got time to wait for that.
Yeah, but how beneficial is that for a veteran such as Buddy Hield to start working with this young man to restore his confidence? He's the first-round draft pick. He is the future, one of the futures with the Hawks. But it may not be right now. So by him sitting on the bench and watching this, almost like a rookie quarterback that can play behind a veteran. You see all your veterans play, you know when to move, you know when to screen, you know when to cut. All these different things you can see from the bench is actually doing wonders for him. But then you also have a person like Buddy Hield that's showing you in practice how to be successful, how to be a long-term pro. Those are some of the things that people are not talking about because they don't see Buddy Hield out there playing. Yeah. But internally, he's doing wonders, not only for Richardson, but for the entire team.
No, I agree with that. And that's why I say I think the Hawks have a good young core that they're going to continue to build with. I just think in this series, they're going to have to find ways to outsmart the Knicks. And that's where the experience, I think, comes in. Because, again, you're talking about, guys like Towns and Jalen Brunson, right? And OG and Bridget, all these guys have 30, 40, 50 games of playoff experience. Whereas if you're Jalen Johnson, this is your first time really in this moment as the guy, right? This is for a lot of these guys. So that's where it's going to get tricky. But I think the Hawks are very, very feisty. We're going to get to some of these other series, though, because we got some questions in the comment section. Shout out to my man, Ren, on Instagram. I see him tune in as well. Shout out to Squeeze. It was the first comment of the night. He said, people might not agree. He's talking about the Rockets-Lakers series. I just think the Rockets are shooting horrible the last 2 games. And Şengün is missing so many close shots. If they shoot a tad better, they can even the series up. What's your thoughts on this series, Terry? Right now, obviously, the Lakers, they have 2-0. They were heavy underdogs coming in. And now they go to Houston with a chance to really, really put a nail in the coffin on the Rockets and Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. I am totally disappointed with how the Rockets are playing right now. I mean, if you look at it on paper, they have the better team. They have the more athletic team, and for you to go and I understand that the games were at in LA, but man, you have to at least take one of those games, and uh, and for them to just to kind of lay an egg, it's almost like they already quit, and they shouldn't be able to quit. And you can't blame it on, well, we're a young team or any of these different things. Those excuses out the window when you're trying to establish yourself in the playoffs. The Spurs are a young team, and they're not going out saying, well, we're a young team, that's why we lost. They're out there trying to beat you every game, and I don't see that from Houston.
I agree. I don't like anything about Houston right now. And I said it during the Friday live, the pregame show before this game started on Saturday. This is a legacy moment for Kevin Durant. Remember, the Rockets were the #2 seed in the West last year. And they traded for Kevin Durant thinking he was going to be the missing piece to get him over the top. It has not worked out. They've had a lot of issues. A lot of things have played out in the media, whether it's a burner account, whether it's conflict within that locker room. And then he gets this mysterious injury before game one.
Mm-hmm.
He sits out game one, he doesn't play. Then he comes in game two, they still lose. On the flip side, you got LeBron, who really should be the third best player on the Lakers. They're missing their two best players, I think, in Luka and Austin Reeves. And LeBron takes on the leadership role. Now, we know LeBron has always been a leader, so I don't want to make it seem like this is something new. Right. But it also kind of highlights the lack of leadership from Kevin Durant. Because it's like, in this moment, this is who you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be guiding these young guys to that next level and elevating them. And you're not doing it. And I look at some of these things in this series, right? Shout out to Squeeze. He talked about the shooting. In game one, the Rockets shot 33% from three. In game two, they shot 24%. On the flip side, you got the Lakers who have shot 53% and 46% through the first two games. So the Rockets' defense isn't even showing up at this point, which speaks to the effort, as you talk about, teams that want it, the will to win. You look at, again, if we're going to talk young teams, Orlando's a young team. They went into Detroit and had to win a game. For the most part, Philly is a young team, right? With no Embiid, they got to go into Boston and win a game. Atlanta's a young team. These are teams that are showing the fight, the urgency of the playoffs. And then I look at the Rockets, and it's like, you're just going through the motions. You look at them yesterday, Ime Udoka, and shout out to Pooh, because I know Ime, she put a question up about Ime on here. What do you think about his coaching in the series? I think it's been terrible. He played Reed Shepherd in game one. Reed Shepherd gives him 17 points, knocks down 5 threes. Then in game two, Reed Shepherd only plays 10 minutes. Like, you need more shooting. Why aren't you playing? And this is a guy that you drafted 3rd overall 2 seasons ago. And you go from letting him start and getting 17 points to now it's like, oh, we're not even going to play you in the second game. I don't know what's going on with this Houston locker room. I don't like any of it. And I have a feeling this series might be already over.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a sweep. But if the Lakers come into Houston and win this game, it is over. Like, and you're right. You have to talk about the legacy. But if you look at Kevin Durant's history, great player, great scorer, never really deemed him as a leader. You didn't have to be a leader in Golden State because you had vocal leaders with Draymond Green, Steph Curry, even Klay Thompson at times, And
Iggy was still on the team too, a veteran like
exactly. So he's never really had to be the leader because look, when he was in OKC, it was him, it was Westbrook, and these guys, so he was just more of the I'll be the best player, but I don't want to be the leader.
Right. Really quick update. I got Detroit Orlando in the background. End of the first quarter, Detroit's up 4. Speaking of, let me get your thoughts on the Magic. I know you covered the Magic during the regular season, and you were there for the playing game against Charlotte as well. The last time you were on the live with me, I asked you, what's going on with Orlando? Because they went and got Desmond Bane. That was supposed to be the move to kind of change things. And even when we covered that Knicks game, I said to you, I don't know if they have the same identity they had last year. Because last year they were just a very physical defense. They didn't show that this year, but in that Charlotte game, they came alive defensively, and they carried it over to game one. Do you think what they're doing now is sustainable? Are you liking what you're seeing from the Orlando Magic through these last 2 games?
Yeah, so when I covered that play-in tournament, I had an opportunity to interview with Coach Mosley because that's one of my guys, and the Magics were playing for their jobs. A lot of players, because I'm gonna have to be honest with you, if they would have lost that play-in tournament to the Charlotte Hornets, there were a lot of people were already screaming for Mosley's job, and then some people were even saying that they should even look at considering trading Paolo and keeping Bain. And they needed to win this game, so I was really glad to see that. And the way that they won in epic form, they needed that for their confidence and for them to come to Detroit and beat them in Detroit, and now sticking with Detroit now. I love that for Coach Mosley. I know that was a relief for him, and it's not only for him, it was a relief for Paolo. It's been a relief. Franz is back. They've been battling injury with some of their key players, and that's been the biggest thing for the Magic these last couple years. Last year, when Paolo and Franz got hurt, was still inconsistent. But I think people on the team are stepping it up. Suggs is stepping it up. He's more aggressive, and sometimes teams need that. They need that light bulb to go off. Will they beat Detroit? I know that they're happy to play Detroit and not play Boston. I'm gonna be honest with you on that, because Detroit is beatable, and it's already been proven. So if they come out and win this series, I would not be surprised if the Magic win this series. But I'm really happy, and I'm actually going to be covering the game on Saturday, and game 3, and so that's actually going to game 4 actually. Isn't that game 4?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, today's Wednesday.
So I'm anxious to see how they're going to be when they play and play in front of this crowd. But one of the things that I can tell you is, if you've never been to an Orlando Magic game, I've covered the Magic for a few years, and that game, that play-in tournament when they played against the Hornets, was probably the loudest I've ever heard the crowd in the Kia Center, and they needed that. They fed off of that. So if they come back and they're able to be up 2-0, you won't be. Bring your earplugs and everything else, because you're not going to hear anything in the Kia Center.
Yeah, I think Coach Mosley does deserve a lot of credit, because coming off that first playing loss, it almost seemed like, they packed it in for the season. They came through with a tremendous defensive effort very early in that game against Charlotte. And then to come out in game 1 the way they did against Detroit, like you said, I thought Paolo was super efficient. 23 points on 15 shots. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was assertive, he was efficient, and he looked like the best player on the floor. And this Detroit team, as you mentioned, I think they are super beatable, because for all the things that Cade does, those things are regular season stuff. In the playoffs, you need multiple guys that can attack a defense, and Detroit just doesn't have that. And I do feel like Detroit was better last year. I don't think people talk enough about last year with Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. They had more scorers. They had more shooting.
Yeah.
This year's team, I look at them and it's like, all right, after Cade, Jalen Duran is a rim running big. You can't just give him the ball and he's going to create his own shot. Tobias Harris is a spot up shooter. Like, who's the other guy who's supposed to get you some offense? Who's the other guy who the defense is supposed to be scared of? They don't have that. So I think for Orlando, as you mentioned, you look at this like, we could have played Boston with those 2 wings and all those 3-point shooters. Or we could have played Detroit, who's got the one guy we can just key in on. Yeah. All right, we take that. And like you said, they won game 1. They're hanging tough right now. They're down 6 early in the second quarter. We spoke about a couple of teams that, young teams went on the road and won a game. Obviously, Orlando. Portland did it yesterday. Philly did it. Minnesota. Out of the teams that were underdogs and were able to win a game on the road, who were you most impressed by? And don't say the Hawks, bro. No, don't use the homework pick of the Hawks.
I'm not. I'm Portland. Yeah, I actually went to sleep, thought that Portland was going to lose that game. I woke up and they won, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. But I did watch them play. They play with a lot of heart, even though, they may not win the series. But if they're able to keep this team together, they're going to cause a lot of heartaches for a lot of teams out in the West.
Yeah, I think that series has shifted a little bit, because it will be interesting to see. Wembanyama was diagnosed with concussion after yesterday's game. Now, in the NFL, as you and I know, normally you're out at least a week.
At least.
Right. So if that transitions over into these games, then you're looking at Wemby missing probably 3 games. At least 2, maybe 3 games, and that can completely change the series. Portland tied 1-1 going back home. And if you're San Antonio, you don't have your best player, you don't have the defensive player of the year, this series could really change very quickly for San Antonio, man.
And I got to be honest with you. Just I saw when he hit his head, he probably needs to sit a game. you don't want to rush him back. I know everybody wants to see him play. He's the big ticket item, and everybody's coming to see him play. But he hit his head very hard, man. And I know basketball is not like football when it comes to contact. So that's why they make a lot of the NFL players sit out a week, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 weeks. But when he hit his head on the ground, man, that was all. Yeah. There was no. He didn't brace with his hands or anything. It just his head hit the ground. So I would consider sitting him out the next game and probably the following one as well.
Yeah, like I said, I think for sure he's going to miss at least one game, maybe 2. But it'll be interesting because if San Antonio's down 2-1, there's going to be that feeling within their organization like, hey, can we get him out there? You know, we can't afford to go down 3-1. We might take ourselves 2 people to hold. Guys, I want to remind you, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast live every Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. This week, I'm going to be live Friday, 7:30 p.m. Tomorrow is the first round of the draft. And in the years past, I've done a live during the draft. But this year, I want to just enjoy the draft and then kind of react to round 1 on Friday. So that'll be Friday, 7:30. Shout out to Kyrie. He wanted to get thoughts on this other series so far. I tell fans, let's let these series unfold before we kill teams and players. I agree, Kyrie. I think the one thing about the playoffs, we love it, but there is also this live and die with every game mindset that takes place in the playoffs, right? Your team loses a game and it's the end of the world. Your team wins a game and you're going to win a championship. You got to let the series unfold. We've talked about a couple of series so far, Terry, so I want to focus on something that we haven't got to. Minnesota-Denver is quietly becoming a rivalry out west. Anthony Edwards has a 30-point game to win game 2. Rudy Gobert, I think, has been great in this series. And then you hear the comments by Jaden McDaniels where he said, all the defenders in Denver are terrible. We just attacked all of them. I think this is truly becoming a really good rivalry out west. What are your thoughts on this series so far? That now we're going to Minnesota tied 1-1.
Yeah, that was another series where one of the games I went to sleep on because I thought that Denver had the game wrapped. And when I woke up and I saw that Denver lost, I was surprised. I didn't know how well Minnesota was going to play because, as you can see, their star player was, he was a little banged up here and there. He took a nasty little fall, and no one knew how well he was going to play. But they play with heart, man. They play with heart, and that's what you're going to need. And you're right. It's quietly one of these rivalries where they're no longer scared of because Denver was a champion. They're not looking at that. They're not caring. They're not concerned at all. They're out here trying to win, make a name for themselves. And that's what they got to do. Everybody wants to beat the champ, and they were the champ at one time before OKC. So they are still considered they're still considered champions because a lot of those players are still on that team. Right. So Minnesota want to establish themselves, and unfortunately for Minnesota, there are a couple other teams that are ahead of them that are pretty good, i.e. OKC. San Antonio's on the rise, and they're still trying to find their way within that third, fourth, fifth seed or what have you when it comes to getting people excited about Minnesota Timberwolves. But they have a superstar, and they have a lot of, I don't like to call them the others, but they have a lot of role players, and a lot of those guys know their role. And they're stepping up at the highest opportune time to do it. And for McDaniels to talk trash, you got to be careful with that too, because if you're off the rest of this series, those words are going to come back to haunt you.
I agree with that part. Now, if he backs it up and they win the series, then it's like, hey, you can say whatever you want.
He looks like a genius.
Right. He looks like a genius. I just think this series, there's a lot of intrigue and there's a lot of storylines to it because on one hand, most people consider Joker the best player in the game, right? And maybe Wemby's taking that crown right now, but a lot of people have Joker in that conversation. He's going to be a top 3 finisher and MVP this season. On the flip side, and then to keep it Denver, after they won the championship, they kind of broke up their bench. This year, they finally get a bench again with Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson, right? They got their team. Then you got Anthony Edwards on the other end. Anthony Edwards attacks everybody as if he's the best player on the court. And like you said, if Anthony Edwards just gets a little bit of help, whether it's DiVincenzo, whether it's Randall, whether it's Naz Reid, if he just gets like 2 of those guys that come along with him, they become very tough to beat because on most nights, like you said, you've got a superstar already who feels he's on the same level as these other guys. He just needs a little bit of help to get them over the hump to be able to win a game. So that's the intrigue for me there. I thought originally Denver would win in 6. I'm going to stick to that prediction, but I think game 3, it's going to be super, super interesting to see how Denver responds to those comments from Jaden McDaniels and how, again, Anthony Edwards plays at home. If he drops another 30 piece and they win, then they got Denver on the ropes.
Yeah, they definitely have him on the rope, but and he's going to try to go for the gusto. He's not concerned about anybody. He wants to. Minnesota's going to have to be real mindful in the next year or two, because if you not put some, I'm not saying that those players that they have now are not good, but you got to add another scorer on their team. If you don't get one of those scorers to help Anthony Edwards out, he's going to be gone.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, they're never going to get the marquee free agents. Nobody's ever going to just sign in Minnesota. You're going to have to either trade or draft. They're going to have to figure that part out. That's why the Karl Anthony Towns trade was so important for them, because you moved on from an all-star, right, for Randall. And some of that was just them. Maybe they felt like salary cap, they couldn't withstand having Rudy's contract with Karl Anthony Towns' contract with Anthony Edwards. But on the flip side, it's like it was a downgrade. Karl Anthony Towns is a better player than Julius Randle, and now you're looking at Julius Randle as your number 2. So like you said, long-term for them, it's going to get interesting what they're going to have to do there. Again, guys, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. We're live every Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. This Friday, we're going to be back 7:30 p.m. as we react and cover the draft. That's going to be day 2 of the draft. Terry, for those of the people that don't know, that maybe haven't seen you on the podcast before, you're covering the UFL, the Orlando Storm. We're going to get into some NFL talk. You and I covered the Senior Bowl, and you've been at a lot of the All-Star showcases, so you're very familiar with a lot of the players in this draft. Let's go to the draft tomorrow. It looks like Fernando Mendoza, number 1. We've known that for quite some time. That's a lot.
Right.
All right. Outside of Mendoza, though, who's a top 10 player that you're really keeping your eye on that you really like? Is it Jeremiah Love? Is it Sonny Styles? Is it one of the defensive ends, Arvell Reese or Bailey? Who is it that you really like in this top 10 that you're interested to see where they're going to land?
I love Jeremiah Love. Like, honestly, I know it's cliche that I watched. Obviously, we all watched him play at Notre Dame, but he's one of the players that I think that that can probably bring this running back, drafting running backs high, a thing again. And but there are quite a few players. You see some people that said that some of the players may slip, i.e. Reuben Bain. They said he may slip out of the top 10. A lot of people are not convinced. His arms are too short. All these different things. He had legal troubles that brought him up. So you'd be surprised, and you already are aware of this, of how things come up from your past when you're being drafted. And so that's one of the reasons why we mentor these young men and tell them, hey, these are the things that you have to be mindful of when you're out there trying to make yourself a career. But there's a lot of players. It's not really like a flashy type draft this year, but there are some quality players in all different, sides on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. I know the defensive ends, they got a lot of them. The bookends are really a good thing, but also the safeties. There's some good safeties that are going to be out this year too. They got a kid out of Toledo that's actually pretty good too. I like him.
Yeah, I'll actually like this draft. Now, I don't think there's the star power that previous drafts have. And some of that has to just do with that the quarterback position isn't as strong this year. Because in years past,
your guy is in the draft.
Diego?
Yeah.
Listen, man. For those of you that tuned in and heard, we talked about Diego Pavia. We saw him at the Senior Bowl. I would be surprised if Diego goes in the top 4 rounds. I think maybe a team takes a flyer on him in the 5th round, because obviously it's tough to overlook some of the success he had in college. But the measurables, I just don't see a team that's really going to be excited about bringing in a quarterback who's probably 5'7", 5'8". It's just not going to translate to the next level. But in terms of, like I said, star power, years past, you would have 3 or 4 quarterbacks that are going to go in the first round. And, you don't have that this year. But in terms of overall talent, I mean, this is probably going to be a draft that's going to produce probably 10 receivers in the first 2 rounds. This is a draft that's going to have a lot of day 1 starters. Like we're talking about some of the defensive guys. Caleb Downs is going to be a day 1 starter. Sonny Styles is going to be a day 1 starter. Montour Delane. Like, you got a lot of guys that no matter where they land, they're going to be starting from day 1. And so that's what intrigues me about this draft. And that's why I'm interested to see where some of these guys go. You got multiple teams that have multiple picks. What do the Browns do at 6, right? Do the Browns go old lineman or receiver and try to boost up their offense because they know they got another pick later in the draft? The Giants got 2 of the top 10 picks. So there's so much going on. I'm really, really interested to see. And in terms of Ruben Bain, I didn't like how that story is being covered. Because one, that's a story from a year ago. These teams should have already known about that.
Of course, they've already done their research. It's just somebody. Right. It's just a journalist that's trying to create another buzz.
Right, and that's what I don't like. I do not like that at all. That was a story from a year ago. These teams should have already done their due diligence. You should have already turned over, every leaf to find out you knew what the story was, and you moved on from it. But to assassinate the young man's character now, as he's approaching the biggest day of his professional career, I think is very reckless of a lot of these journalists. And like you said, somebody who's trying to create clickbait and shock value. I hope it doesn't affect Ruben Bain, because Ruben Bain is a top 10 talent. And Ruben Bain is going to be an impact guy. Now, if he drops, I mean,
that's going to shake up the draft.
Yeah, it'll shake up the draft, because I think he's great for Dallas at 12. I think he's great for Baltimore at 14. Like, there's some good teams that if Ruben Bain lands there, it could be similar to what we saw with Jalen Carter. Remember Jalen Carter slid?
Yeah.
And, everybody, all the characters, and then Jalen Carter lands in Philly, and then everybody's like, wait a minute, how the hell did Jalen Carter, probably the best interior lineman in this draft, land in the Eagles? Same thing with Ruben Bain. If he lands at 12, I know we love the joke on Jerry Jones, but what an offseason that would be for Jerry Jones to be like, hey, we just traded Mike last year. We showed up the interior of our defense with Quentin Williams and Kenny Clark. We get Rashawn Gary from Green Bay, and now we can get Ruben Bain. That is a really good front four if he ends up there.
Yeah, definitely. So, that's a scary one.
Yeah. What are you expecting the Bears to do? Is it O-line? Is it defensive side? Because I know you guys have lost some guys this offseason, and you're coming off of a great season for Caleb in the offense, Ben Johnson. You got some good weapons on offense. Do you think the focus should be defense?
Well, I mean, we had an unfortunate injury with our offensive tackle, our left tackle, Ozzie Trapillo. We wasn't expecting him, because we drafted him last year. We wasn't expecting him to sustain that injury. But so we're gonna have to. We went out and drafted. I mean, we went out and traded for another left tackle, and then we also had a left tackle that was already on the Bears as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bears go defense here and go defensive tackle or safety, especially if that kid out of Toledo is there. But they're flirting a lot with the offensive tackle from Alabama. His name slips me right now, but
Caden Proctor.
Yes, because all of the front office was there to watch him on his pro day from the Chicago Bears, and so he's definitely another guy. The Bears are fortunate enough to have 2 second-round draft picks, 2 high second-round draft picks, courtesy of the Buffalo Bills, and so we can address those issues. So we need a tackle. And that's not a desperate need, but it would be a nice to have, because we don't know how long Trapillo is going to be out. But we also need defensive help, man. I mean, our defense was good last year, but a lot of it was, I wouldn't say luck, but in some lack of a better words, we had a lot of lucky breaks, and that was the reason why we were able to get to where we were at. But we need help on the safety, linebacker, and that line. And if we address that, not just in the draft, we may even trade for a player, because there are some players on the Giants that the Bears are interested in getting. And if we can go ahead and get one of those established players from the Giants or wherever, I think the Bears are open to that, because drafting 25, it's one of these ones that you have expectations for your player to pan out, but if it takes them a couple years to develop, it wouldn't hurt the team. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get an opportunity that presents to them that's hard to pass. I could see them trading that pick or trading out to get more picks.
Yeah, trading out could make a lot of sense, especially if we see the run on receivers late in the first round. You're going to have teams that are going to get super aggressive to try to get a receiver if we get to that point where they're coming off the board. The Giants one is interesting, because I have heard that the Giants, the rumor is they're out on Sonny Styles, but I also think that's linked to the fact that they don't expect Sonny to be there. There's strong indications that Robert Saleh in Tennessee are going to take Sonny Styles at 4. And so if one of those D linemen fall, the Giants have already said that they would not pass on Bailey or Arville Reese if they're there, which means that Thibodeau then becomes available, or possibly Brian Burns, if they want to just go completely young. So that's a great point too. The Bears could take advantage of what somebody higher in the draft does, because then they might have a player that becomes available based on what they drafted. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Let's talk a little bit of UFL before we wrap up tonight, because you have been covering Orlando Storm. When we spoke last time, we spoke about Anthony Beck. We talked about this franchise that was an expansion team this year. Let's start with the head coach, because you had some high praise for him, and he's come in now and really has been a difference maker in his coaching style and what they've done. They're a great defense. I think they've allowed the least amount of points so far this season defensively. Point differential, they're second only to the DC Defenders. So speak about the impact of Anthony Beck and what he's come over. He did a great job in St. Louis last year. Now he's doing it for Orlando. Speak about his impact.
Yeah, and they shut the Birmingham Stallions.
Hold on, we had a little bit of a connection issue there, Terry. I'm gonna go single shot here until we get Terry back on. We had a little bit of a connection issue here. Guys, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. We're live every Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. This week, Friday, 7:30 p.m. We'll be back as I discuss round 1 of the draft and day 2 stuff. Terry, give me a thumbs up. Let me know when you're ready. I know it froze up there for a second. I just want to make sure we get the connection issue good. Just give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Yep, I see you. Yep. So like I said, guys, just make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Right. This Friday, 7:30 p.m. We're going to be back reacting to the draft. And then Monday, 7 p.m., Real Fans, Real Talk. Yeah, Terry, continue. I know you were talking about Anthony Beck and the recent shutout they had in their last game.
Yeah, we just recently shut out the Birmingham Stallions, the first time that's ever happened in UFL for the regular season. So it was good to see that. But Coach Beck has been around the UFL for a while. Obviously, with the Battlehawks, ironically enough, we're going to be playing the Battlehawks this weekend, this Saturday. So I'm anxious to see how he's going to play when he has to coach against it. How he's going to coach against his former team. I know he's up for the task. I know he's excited about it, but it's going to be bittersweet for him. But he set the tone early, and he drafted well. There's a lot of people that were kind of talking about the questionable draft picks that he made, but he did an outstanding job. Him and his staff did an outstanding job drafting, and these young men are out here producing for them, and that's the reason why they're the only undefeated team in the UFL, and they don't expect to lose at all. And that's what you want from a team. They expect to win every game, and those are the expectations that Coach Beck gives for them. He's got this team humming, and he's got this team believing. But Coach Beck is he's a marketer too, so he tries to get the actual fan base involved too, and that's what he's been doing. And Orlando Storm attendance has been going up, and a part of it is because of the coach. And winning solves everything. So if your team is winning, and you have an opportunity, because look at it like this: there's only 10 games this season. If the Storm wins this game, they already won. They're 5-0. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a team that can essentially they can pretty much lock up a playoff right now, because they take the top 4 teams. If they win right now, they're in the driver's seat to be in the playoffs. And so I hope Coach Beck is letting them know that, and letting them know how important this game is, because the Battlehawks, they're going to try to win this game because they want to be in the playoffs as well. They have the biggest fan base out of any team in the UFL. The Battlehawks always produce the most fans. So I'm glad that this game is actually in Orlando versus Vice being in St. Louis, because I've had the luxury of seeing that team and that fan base in action, and they are loud and they support their team. So we only play them one time this year, and fortunately for us, it's in St. Louis, unless we have to match up against them in the playoffs. So we're going to have to set the tone early. And the quarterback that we have, he's the second leading passer in the UFL. And our running back, Jason Corbin, the former Florida State Seminole, he's the second leading rusher in the UFL. And last year, he led the league in rushing.
You mentioned Coach Beck and like him trying to incorporate the fan base. How do you think the city of Orlando is embracing this team. Because I mean, I thought they did a great job to roll out DJ Khaled on opening day. Now the team is being successful right out the gate. How do you feel the city is embracing them, and how do they look at this Orlando Storm team?
So I have to admit, when I when the first game kicked off, obviously there was a lot of people there to see DJ Khaled or what have you, so they didn't know what to expect. It's hard trying to market in a team that's so used to being a tourist city. When you think of Orlando, you think of Disney, you think of Universal, you think of all these places, and for them to have an opportunity to go to a football game, this is what their Storm is trying to capitalize on. The tourism that comes here from Orlando and the surrounding areas in Central Florida. So he's been doing a great job. He's been doing TV interviews. I noticed an uptick in media coverage. I noticed an uptick in advertisement on local TV channels here. And we've been doing our job with the local media here, getting the fans involved. And there's been a lot of fans. Like I was at the gym the other day and I had my Orlando Storm shirt on. And I had two people come up to me and say, "Hey, we're going to the next game." So that's encouraging, and these folks don't even live in Orlando. So that's actually good to see that. So the word is getting out. And I think that if, like we talked about before, if they keep winning, everybody wants to be a part of a winning championship and a winning team and a winning culture.
Right. I think that's major right there. Like you said, to come out the gate, be winning, and then generate that excitement behind it, because again, it's a new team. Some people might have some interest in it, but to be winning really is going to pique people's interest. As you said, winning solves everything, and nobody wants to be attached to a loser. So you don't want to be going out there to see a team that's just stinking up the joint.
Yeah, and not to take anything away from when the Orlando Guardians were here, when it was the XFL, the Guardians only won one game that year, and then they wasn't back the next year. You see what I mean? Right. So now that the Storm, the expansion team is here, and they've already won 4 games, and they're the only undefeated team in the UFL. What a difference a couple years make.
Right. It's a great start. For those of you that don't already, make sure you follow Terry. You see the social media handle right there. He's also doing a great pregame show, the Storm Report. Talk about some of the stuff you're doing with the Storm Report right now and how that's been going so far as you approach the halfway point of the season.
Yeah, the Storm Report has been doing tremendous. I mean, my broadcasting partner, Ron Lighthall, and we have one of the top videographers that's in the game, Manny. And Manny's been killing it. And he's been getting a lot of the footage for the UFL as well. But we've gotten some great partners that partner with us, and we're definitely appreciative of that. So much so that we're like one of the only Orlando Storm media that actually covers the games away from Orlando. So we're full-fledged. We're on the ground the entire time. We're going to be at all the away games. So we got Houston, Dallas, and DC. So we'll be in your neck of the woods, Eric, in about a month and a half or so.
And so May, I'll be there.
Yeah. So we'll be doing that. But we also do pregame coverage. We partner with Tom's Watch Bar here in Orlando. So we do some of our pregame stuff there. But we also just started partnering now with Tom's Watch Bar in Washington, D.C. So we'll be filming out of there when we at the DC game. So we'll definitely see you out there as well. And we got a couple surprise guests that's going to be on the show who cover the DC Defenders, and they'll be out there to cover the game with us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's about a month away. That game could have major playoff implications. Right now, those are the two best teams in the first half of this UFL season, man. Terry, before we wrap up, give me a final thought. Let people know anything you got coming up that they should be looking out for.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this draft. You talked about before. You and I covered the Senior Bowl this year, and just to see these young men have an opportunity to live out their dreams. So I want to wish all the young men who are going to get drafted, and for those that are not getting drafted this week and have to take the undrafted free agent route, don't give up, and continue to do your thing. And we're all proud of you.
No, that's a fact. I'm looking forward to it as well. Shout out to all the young men on this journey. I know it's probably been stressful, but now the time has come. You're going to hear your name called at some point. So congratulations to all of them. Again, guys, I remind you to subscribe to the podcast. We're live every Wednesday night, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We're going to be live Friday, 7:30 p.m. as I react to round 1 of the draft and anything that's going on in the NBA playoffs that night. That'll also be round 2 of the draft. And then Monday, back on Brother Trippy on Real Fans Real Talk at 7 p.m. Terry, we're gonna have you back on the show real soon, and I know I'm gonna see you in about a month. If the Hawks win, the invite is been removed, and it will no longer be an invite to the show. Nah, but definitely gonna have you back on at some point this summer as we'll get more into the UFL again, and then also we're gonna talk, some basketball. We're gonna talk some football like we always do. So we're gonna get together real soon. But
Most
for my brother Terry Spain, I am Rick Sanchez. This was the Sanchez Show. Guys, enjoy your night, and I will see you on Friday at 7:30 p.m. We out of here, guys.